Hello everyone, it's the Winged Unicorn, and today I'm going to talk about probably what has to be, for at least most of us, the biggest part of our childhood. That's right, today I'm going to talk about Thomas and Friends. You know, that little blue train that works on a railway and has many other train friends, and, they get into shenanigans and they do other stuff and teach children many morals that are helpful in life, or at least I like to think that. So, the reason why I'm talking about this is because something has kind of happened to the franchise lately, and for those of you who still kept up with Thomas, you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. In fact, the reason why I actually knew about this is because my brother, longtime Thomas fan, and he's been a Thomas fan for pretty much his whole life, he showed me what's going on, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I have to talk about this. And yeah, so I guess shout out to Kevin. And if you're watching this, dude, hopefully I'm doing your Thomas buddy some justice, because in a way, Thomas has been kind of a big part of my childhood as well. And we're just gonna talk about it. So we're just gonna talk about what's going on right now with Thomas. So yeah, roll that intro.
I can see a rainbow in your tears as they fall down. I can see your soul through the pain as they hit the ground. I can see a rainbow in your tears as the sun comes out. As the sun comes out.
What is being presented on the screen right now is going to be the future of Thomas. It's going to be shifted into a 2D animated, very cartoony style of a preschool show. And because of this, the community has been very skeptical and raging at Mattel, which are the owners of Thomas. And when my brother showed me this news, I was also pretty skeptical, especially because of the recent trailer that just dropped this week. Everybody was pretty much mad at Mattel of what they are doing to the most beloved franchise of our childhoods. And it sucks for me as well, because in a way, I guess Thomas has been a big part of my childhood as well, and to see it turn into this. Now, if you are someone who actually are excited for this new reboot, I completely understand. You're like, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, but for me, I'm just going to talk about my history of Thomas and what made that work as opposed to this. But there's absolutely nothing wrong if you are excited for the reboot. And, So in this section of the video, I'm just going to talk about the eras of Thomas, what made them work, and why the future of this reboot will fail. And I have done my research. I have talked to my brother, who has been a long time part of this Thomas community, and I have seen what other people have thought about, and I have made my own speculations on the Thomas episodes in each individual era. So, hopefully I do all of your childhood shows justice, and let's just talk about this. So yeah, this is basically my history of Thomas, and why that works, but the future probably won't. The first era is what I like to call the toy model era, and during this, they basically started off Thomas with having toy model trains and a narrator telling the story, being the voice of the trains, and telling the audience of the train shenanigans. Now, I remember when I was a child, I actually had seen a lot of charm in this, and I really liked it. And I think what made it work especially is because since they are toy models, it's been filmed in our world. And of course, stop motion was a thing back then, but because these trains were being treated like trains and the environment around them is pretty much our environment, I thought it worked, like as if the world was really real, and I really felt the magic that delivered, and everybody else pretty much agree with me since what I have heard from them, and that pretty much started Thomas of what made it so magical to us. However, a few years later, Thomas has shifted to CGI and animation. This is basically the first half of this era. And so for the first half of this era, I thought it was handled pretty well as well. And I'm actually one of those people who have preferred this era. And because of it being shifted to CGI and animation, I have noticed that the community of Thomas has been split into two sides. On one hand, there are people who prefer the toy model trains, and on the other hand, there are people who prefer the animation and CGI. This is probably just me being an animation fan, but I actually kind of like the CGI. I think what made that work as well is like the toy model trains have done. It felt like our world. It kind of carried that over to the animation style, because I thought the animation was actually really real. It looked real to me, at least to me, and the trains were still treated like trains. And the magic hasn't gone away from me. And plus, what's even cooler is that they kept the narrator, but I always liked how they added the trains with their own voices. And when I first saw them have their own voices, I was excited because I always wanted to know what their voice would sound like. And I'm still happy to this day to hear them. So for this era, at least for me, I really liked it. Now for the second part of the animation CGI era is where things start to get off the rails. See what I did there? Thomas joke. And this is the part of the Thomas franchise where it starts to have its downfall. And that is Thomas Big World Big Adventures. I hope I said that title right. So apparently this whole thing started off with the movie, and I didn't see the movie, and I don't know if my brother has either. But all I know is that this is basically the start of the second half of the animation CGI era, because after the movie came the show. And I don't have cable. I mean, I do, but I don't really use it that much. And so I decided to watch it on Netflix because it was on there, and me and my brother just wanted to see it. This is basically the part where Thomas doesn't work as much as it did before. Because first of all, yes, they did kind of keep the same style for the early parts of the CGI animation era. And so I'll give them credit for that, but it's the problem with the trains, because like I said, the one of the important things is that they always treated the trains like trains. In this era, in this half of the era, they don't do that. The trains do this Chuggington thing where, like, they can move. They don't move too much, but, like, it's noticeable still. And, for example, if you don't know what I'm talking about, for example, if they ever say yes, they can, like, shake up and down to imply yes, like, something like that. And, it kind of reminded me of Chuggington, what it did. I think Chuggington did that. And it's a Disney Junior show. And that kind of erased the magic immediately. I was just like, what, why are they moving? It kind of really erased the magic that Thomas once had. But I decided to keep watching because, this is going to be a new thing. I could get used to this. Except when I kept watching, there were some part of the episodes I didn't like, especially the dream sequences. There were, like, dream sequences in every episode, and I really don't like using this word, but they were kind of cringy. And it's not only that, it's not only because it was cringy, but also because the trains were doing outlandish things. Like there was like flying. They were like flying, and they were like, there's this one sequence where like one train, I forgot his name. He was in like an Italian train, and he was like singing in the opera, and he was just like standing on the stage, and I'm all like, no, no, that's trains don't do that. Treat them like trains. Yes, I know it's a dream sequence. These trains have, you know, have heads, they have brains, they have thoughts like us humans do, and they can dream. A train can dream. But, you know, the sequence is just, they're just, also with that combined with them being cringy, like, because they didn't do that before. They kind of, like, had monologues to themselves, and I thought that was worked, and I thought it was kind of charming when they did that. Yeah, it was a little weird, but I thought it was charming. But now they have full-on dream sequences. Outlandish, cringy dream sequences. And, so that was another problem with that. And another thing that kind of bothered some people, this is kind of a nitpick, I like to call it, because I think it's the least of the problems that this half of the era had. I cannot speak. And because pretty much Thomas is now the narrator. Over the other eras, there were like different narrators that wasn't the trains, but this time Thomas is the narrator. I actually do not mind Thomas being the narrator, because, you know, that's kind of the least of my concerns of this show. But I understand why people are bothered by this. And probably the biggest problem that everybody had with this is that two of the trains from the Steam Team, which are the main trains consist of Thomas, Percy, James, Gordon, Emily, Henry, and Edward. Henry and Edward were the ones that were replaced, with two female engines, Nia and Rebecca. This is apparently a big problem, because Edward and Henry were actually really good characters, and I remember really liking Edward, and I remember there was some charm to Henry, except I always liked Edward more. But I understand the people who like Henry as well. He is a compelling character. And I was really sad when they were taken off the show and replaced with Nia and Rebecca, and these trains called Nia and Rebecca. Like, Rebecca's a very uniquely designed yellow train, and Nia is apparently an orange train that came from Kenya. And although, like, I get it, because I remember when I first watched it and when I was first introduced to Rebecca and Nia, I automatically knew that they did this for gender equality. Because I remember when I was a child, I remember that there were a lack of girls, but over time, I grew out of that stage. And yeah, gender equality is good. I absolutely cherish it, but I only like it when it's done right, because they had to completely cut out two iconic trains, main trains of the franchise, to replace them with Nia and Rebecca. Not only that, but those trains are actually kind of flat characters. There's nothing to them. Because Nia, like I said, she comes from Kenya. That's all she is. The African train that came to Sodor. And Rebecca, people think of her as Mary Sue, because there's no flaws to her. She's just there. She's just perfect. And I have noticed that too. I'm all like, what is Rebecca's purpose? Is there something to her? There isn't. The answer is that there isn't. And I was really disappointed in this show, and it completely erased what Thomas had. Erased all of what we knew of Thomas. And yeah, so that's a downfall, but this is only the beginning, because apparently the reboot is going to do a little bit worse than that. So, so all the problems that I have highlighted for the second half of the era of the animation CGI era, aka the new show that we got, Big World Adventures, those problems kind of carried over to the reboot, except so much worse. Oh, so much worse. Because first of all, this is the least of our problems, but I'm gonna first talk about the child voice acting. Now, I have nothing against child voice acting, or specifically the children that are that are voice acting the trains. I have nothing against them. However, it just doesn't work for me to hear the trains with child voices. And so far, the community has agreed. And it just confirms that, yeah, this is meant for preschoolers. And the second problem is that because the STEAM team was replaced at least some members were replaced in the recent show with Rebecca and Nia. For some reason, they only carried Nia to this show. Rebecca, they completely forgot about Rebecca. They replaced Rebecca with a completely different train, a purple train that I completely forgot the name of. And Edward and Henry seem to be completely forgotten. Which is another thing that sucks about it. Now, we do see other members in the trailer. Like, I remember seeing Emily for one frame. There was Percy. I forgot who else was in it. But that's all I can say right now. And Gordon was in it too. Except, by the way, Gordon is very big compared to the other trains. And that was just a nitpick. And the third problem, the biggest problem, is that it does not have the magic that Thomas once had. I can forgive it for being 2D animated, okay? I can forgive that, since it's targeted for preschoolers. However, the problem is that the trains are not treated like trains. Since it's more cartoony now, they get to, get away with more movements of the trains. For example, I saw that they completely detach from their wheels, and then they do a full 360, and we see them bounce around more. They're more bendy. Like, the trains are just how do I describe it? They just move around, I guess, freely, as if they're not made out of metal, as if they were made of gelatin. I think that's the best way to describe it. And like I said, it kind of completely erases the whole magic that Thomas once had. That they were treated like trains, and that it honestly felt like our world. This doesn't. This just feels like a generic preschooler show. Of course, of someone who has watched Thomas from their childhood and who is constantly being reminded of Thomas to this day, of course, I will still have my problems with this new reboot that Thomas will be getting. However, if you want to walk away from this video with anything, walk away with this fact in your mind. This show is targeted for preschoolers. We gotta remember that. And Thomas was supposed to be targeted for a very young audience. So if you are going to plan to check this out just to see, I feel like if you have the mindset that this is in fact for kids, then, maybe it could be forgiven. I mean, of course, you can have your problems all you want. And like I said, I have my own problems. This is why I made the video to begin with. But it is targeted for those preschoolers and young audiences. So I think we should all remember that and see what's up. Maybe we should give it a chance. Besides, we can't really say anything from the trailer alone and from that picture. We could only just see what we have in store for us. And if you don't like it, then that's absolutely okay. However, we just gotta remember that of the target audience that it's being targeted at. And if you do end up liking the show, then that's absolutely fine as well. You can enjoy it as much as you want. Go ahead. And we just gotta hope for the best for the future of the franchise. And yeah, I actually had a lot of fun with this video. It's nice to come back to this and talk about a show that was kind of a big part of my childhood. And hopefully I did the franchise justice, and I have tried to explain what worked and what's not going to work. And I will probably, check back with this community. Will I make a video like Thomas ever again? Probably not. But, I think it's fun to talk about this show that I once really liked, and what other people seem to like as well. So, yeah. Tell me below what you guys think of the reboot. Are you gonna watch it, or do you think my points are valid? Do you have anything to add on? Do you think it will be the worst thing, or do you think it will be okay or be good? Tell me what you think in the comments. I would love to have a conversation about this. Anyways, the winged unicorn is gonna fly away. See you next time, guys. Goodbye.